Meeting, Wayne's just getting us going online.
Right, Wayne.
Substrate.
I'll tell you yesterday.
Charlie's just going to get the statue they're going to build there.
All right, we'll hand over to you if you like.
Oh, it's me. Yeah, I think I'm lost in the corner.
Just think of the statue they're going to build.
Right, where are we?
Rebecca.
26.5.5, Huddle Grant Accountability Reports. Rebecca. Oh, is she?
Yep.
Just
coming up, yeah.
Come on up.
Yes.
Oh, there she is, Jeepers.
Kia ora everyone. I was trying to start. Yeah. My name is Fiona Reeve and I am the project lead.
Yeah.
Should I start? Fiona, I'll start and then hand over to you if that's cool.
Oh, of course.
So thanks everybody. As you'll note from my report, this is the opportunity for Huddle to do their report back about their activities over the past year in response to the $10,000 grant that the CODC provided. I just want to mention a couple of things before I hand over to Fiona to speak to her amazing report, is that you will see from the report the impact that Huddle has had from across Central Otago and Queenstown Lakes, and it's really starting to embed, and I'm hearing Huddle being mentioned at more and more things. And most recently I had the privilege of being at the Maniatoto Community Board where Hazel from the NASB Craft and Information Centre came and spoke about how Huddle helped that entity through the changes to incorporated societies and other things. So it's just Huddle's really proving its worth, and I want to particularly acknowledge the work of Fiona. This is Fiona's last day in the role, and she has been tremendous as our inaugural project lead for Huddle and has left such a lasting legacy. So our best wishes go to her in her future endeavours, and want to thank her for the work that she's done. Now hand over to her.
Thank you. What a lovely welcome and introduction. Thank you. I'm really touched. I would also like to say a massive thank you to Central Otago District Council. For your continued support. The funding that you guys have provided has really played an important role in helping us build momentum and continue to deliver services and support across Central Otago. Thanks to your investment, Huddle has now worked alongside hundreds of local community groups, strengthening their skills and confidence. And we know that a lot of organisations continue to face increasing pressure around governance, funding, compliance and volunteer capacity. So it's been really encouraging to see the impact that the support is having. So thanks to your funding, we have been in the last year have been able to host a number of tailored workshops across Central Otago, and we've covered things like funding, finance for not-for-profit board members, governance policies, induction and succession planning and effective chairing. What we've done is, rather than deliver generic content, we have designed our workshops specifically for local organisations, making sure that we use regional examples and it's delivered in person. And what we've been seeing at the workshops is there's a lot of questions, which is really great, around sort of how people can kind of utilise the content that we deliver to their organisations. And what we've also seen is a lot of the attendees have been kind of sharing the contacts and ideas with each other. So it's been really nice to see that peer-to-peer support. With our localised approach, for example, in Ranfurly, we had a number of organisations that couldn't make one of our last sessions. So we made sure that we followed up with them, and then we ran that session one-on-one with these groups to make sure that nobody missed out on that training. We were also, thanks to your funding, able to deliver our successful governance mentor program. And post-program survey showed that 100% of participants agreed or strongly agreed that they felt more confident as a result of the program, and 86% said that they felt more capable and effective in their governance role. We were also able to provide one-on-one support to nearly 40 organisations, and we've helped them with things like navigating the changes to the Incorporated Societies Act, the governance, preparing annual accounts, reviewing constitutions, strategic planning and navigating funding. And then we also delivered board-level presentations and connected organisations with skilled mentors and professional advice through our skills matching program. And what we've been able to see is some really practical outcomes. So for example, we helped a community hall re-register after being struck off the Incorporated Societies Act. And as Rebecca mentioned, we helped an organisation in Naseby with their constitution to make sure that they were compliant and helped them set up a Real Me account, which meant that they were then able to successfully apply for funding through DIA. What we've kind of been seeing is that a lot of organisations don't just need the information, but they really need somebody to help navigate them, where to start and connect them with the right people and make sure that that information's delivered and then kind of tailored to make sure that it's kind of relevant to their situation. We recently did a Huddle survey and 67%, very proud to say, of organisations who engage with our services reported significant value from that support, with no respondents reporting minimal or no value. So I think that shows that our services have been really highly beneficial, which we're really proud of. We're also very evidence-based in our approach. So we regularly undertake research and engagement with the community, and our community needs assessment survey showed a shift in results from 2024 to 2026. So encouragingly, governance and policies were identified as less of a pressure point in the recent survey. And whilst we can appreciate there's a number of factors that might have contributed to this change, with Huddle's focus on governance and policy through our workshops and tailored support when they've contributed to this. Central Otago does continue to be a key focus for Huddle, and our aim is to strengthen community groups to be sustainable, connected and confident so they can continue to do all of the amazing things that they do for our community. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to your support for being such a key part of our
Questions?
Not a question, but I was lucky enough to go through one of the Huddle programs last year. And was extremely worthwhile, and I think is a huge mechanism support to our volunteer part of our district and our society, and is, which we all know is a backbone of our communities, and I highly endorse it and we'll be happy to support it going forward.
Well, thank you. And nice to see you again.
One of the things I said during the program was I want to become a counsellor and get at this.
Here we are.
Need to talk about what happened in your programs. Pull
You
that
can
one.
blame Huddle. So there you go.
I'm the same. I did the finance course in Cromwell probably a wee while ago now, I'd say. And it's funny that the volunteer model is keeps our communities going here, and it's the same people across different organisations. You just swap hats depending on what time of the year it is. So it's actually really helpful. Like one person might come, but 5 groups might benefit from that training. So it's actually a bigger impact possibly than you're looking at, because I think there was only like 6 or 7 of us in the course that time. But when we counted up how many organisations that covered, it's probably 15 benefit. So it's not just about the numbers sitting in the course sometimes. I think it's hugely beneficial. And the mentoring program was amazing. I know people have been through it and couldn't say enough about it. So more of that is 100% needed, I think. Like it's
really great engagement with our website, where we provide a whole bunch of resources and our newsletters. I think that's also really encouraging as well to see the.
It's great, and hopefully it just keeps growing. Like I say, it's awesome. Anybody else? Nathan, do you want to move that in the case? Yeah. Curtis, beat to it. You can have the next one. All right, in favour?
No.
Against?
You.
Thank you. Good luck wherever you want to go next. All right, Rebecca, stay there.
Thank you.
There you go. And
I don't know what
also,
it's like there. It's a beautiful sunny day in Dunedin today.
next change. Right, 26.5.6, the Cromwell Museum Grant Accountability Report. Rebecca, would you like to start? And Martin's
I'll
at the table.
start. And then I think there's three trustees up at the table.
I've got Cheryl Sanders here, one of our trustees, and Andrew Perry, another one of our trustees.
Brilliant. So thank you. And just once again, just to open with, this is the annual accountability report from the Cromwell Museum. You'll remember that the other museums received multi-year funding, but due to the significant change that we're going through at Cromwell, we just did 1 year of funding. And so this is the accountability for that. However, it's the previous financial year, so because their financial years align with our own. And so we have their previous financial year, which we'll note to the Cromwell Community Board in the governance report. Cromwell Museum will soon be moving into Te Huikawai at Te Punamahara, the Cromwell Memorial Event Centre. So it's a very exciting time, but it's also a time of significant change. And so I just want to acknowledge the work of the Cromwell Museum Trust and the staff and the volunteers that make that entity flourish, and acknowledge their patience as we work through this. So, and now hand over to Martin to speak to his report.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon, everybody. This report really reflects 10 years of growth for the Cromwell Museum Trust. And it's a little bit out of date now. I see that the report was dated September last year, but this is the first time we've had an opportunity to talk to it. Not only does it reflect 10 years of growth, but it provides a strong cultural perspective for Cromwell residents and beyond the work that the museum does. It's going to be the last report of this type because with districtisation, we've seen the council employ our previous curator/director into a transition role, which will continue through until the end of this year. And it also means that the Cromwell Museum Trust is going to have to develop a different focus to remain relevant in the coming years. And this means focusing on things such as fundraising for assisting with the development of new exhibits and exhibitions, and also the retention and training and induction of a volunteer network, which has been crucial to the operation of the museum over the last 10 years and will continue to be as we go ahead. Thought you might like some context or a bigger picture. I found a recent Burl report dated 2022-2023, and it's always helpful to see your museum in the larger context. And they estimate that that the museum sector in New Zealand holds about almost $6 billion in cultural assets of one sort or another. Over the year of the survey, which was in 2022, I believe, they received 17.5 million visits to museums around the country. There are 417 individual museums in New Zealand, both large, medium-sized and small. They employed 3,365 FTEs, and they contributed as a sector $272 million to the national GDP. So these are not insignificant numbers, and they have been produced by a reputable agency. So Cromwell, in its own small way, is able to contribute to this national significance and certainly regional significance. It's interesting that of the visits, 40% were locals, 27% were domestic out-of-region visits, 20% were overseas, and 14% were local regional. So there's sort of very strong emphasis on locals, both in the immediate region and also slightly wider afield, visiting museums. And we expect and hope that this trend will continue in our new location. Our total visits last year numbered just less than 5,000. It's been hovering around that level now for some time. The current location in the mall has been a detriment to growing those numbers as the visitor numbers through the mall drop off as well. So that's a little bit of background. I just wanted to make some acknowledgements. One of the keys to our success has been the ability of our curator, Jennifer Hay, to to come up with changing exhibitions and to provide curation services of a very high order. We in the last year, we had 5 different types of changing exhibition. We had the Central Museum's 100 exhibition, which was not only us, but the other 4 regional museums as well, which we had contributed to. We had 2 artist exhibitions. We also had a range of NCEA student portfolios on display as well, which are changed from time to time. So at a time of transition and change, when we're moving towards the new museum, we still managed to put on a program of interest to the locals. I think we need to provide a big thank you to both the CODC and the Cromwell Community Board. They've staunch supporters. I'd like to acknowledge the support that Anna Harrison has provided to our trust as well. In the early days, we worked very closely with Jasmax on the design, and we were pleased with how the design worked out, very exciting. I'd like to acknowledge the support that we've had from council staff, in particular David Scoons, and Gareth Robertson, and more latterly Genevieve Crystal, who's provided the direct linkage between our trust and the museum. And our funders enabled us to proceed with the fit out without any council funding. So that's Central Lakes Trust, Otago Community Trust, and Lotteries, Environment and Heritage. Those, I should add that the usual funding model for the 10 years has been to apply to organisations such as Lotteries, Environment and Heritage, who have been very generous to us over the years and have enabled us to retain the services of our curator. But these days are getting harder and harder to get that sort of grant funding. So it's very pleasing for us to see that our curator is now employed in a transition capacity with the council and is working hard to get the museum up and running. So as I said before, the trust will need to reassess its aims and objectives. We believe one of our key roles is to motivate our volunteer team. The role of the volunteers will be important, very important, but different in the new museum. And we are just working through how that's going to change. And I'd also like just to thank the members of the Museum Trust for the support they've given me. And we look forward to many more years of doing what we've been doing. Thank you.
Anybody got any questions? Forward to seeing it. So we're looking forward to seeing it.
Yes, well, it's going to be very exciting. The most of the static displays have already been erected.
Oh yeah.
The material is being transferred from the old museum to the new museum now, and is going to be slowly put into position. And there's an opening exhibition which Jennifer is working on as well, which will be very exciting. Yeah.
Not long. Awesome. Okay. Would you like to move that? Right. Andrew, would you stand up first? Go that way. Bob, would you like to second it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, there you go. Bob, right. All in favour? Any against? Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
One more report.
So hang on. We got another one. Yeah. And now we're.
New sites can just see.
One more.
And then total.
Yep. There's only Rebecca. There's nobody here for that. So.
No, just Rebecca.
26.5.7, Rebecca, it's you by yourself this time.
Yeah.
Otago Community Board reserves.
Oh, kia ora anō, everybody. This is Pleasingly, the Maniatoto Community Board Community Grant Scheme was oversubscribed in the last round. So we had applications totaling 8,431 and there was just $6,700 to distribute. That came about because we had no applications in the first round. So board members put the words out and about, and we had applications from 2 new entities, which was fantastic. So the board, we were reported to the board that they had just over $6,000 in their grant reserve fund, so 6,364. So we put the option to them that they could seek approval to use 2,539 from that reserve to fund those groups at the level that was requested, and so that's the request today.
Happy to move.
Oh, right, hang on. Would anybody like to say anything? Joe?
Other than the issue that we've had is there hasn't been a lot of applications come in to allow us to increase our grants budget over the last 20 years. So there was some new ones, which was really cool. So it was logical that we went down this path and encouraged people to come to us for help when needed.
Happy to move.
Happy to be right. You don't need me. See you later. Right. All in favour? Yep. Carried. Thanks,
Thanks,
Rebecca.
everyone. See you.
Thanks, Rebecca.
And well done to the elected members and the staff team who put out the word and found some new things.
Take charge.
Cool things there too. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
a lot of cool things happen out there in the Great Plains of the Maniatoto.
Right. 26.511. District Event Fund options for distribution and Lowe. And Nick. Any more?
Go for it.
Good afternoon. Today I've got 2 reports for you. The first one is around options for distribution of a one-off district-wide events fund that was supported in council at the meeting on the 28th of January. So the next step in that was going and just doing a bit more work around distribution processes and options for that. So today, really looking at getting your support with the recommended assessment criteria for a district event fund, your direction on your preferred methodology or process for receiving applications to the fund, and also recommending setting up an assessment panel of some councillors, staff, and the Destination Advisory Board, so the appointment councillors at capacity. So in the background to that, this is an outcome of the Central Otago Destination Management Plan and our community's interest in having a range of events spread throughout the year of all types. That led to the formation of our Eventful Central event development framework. And this is one of the action points within there. The first area is for discussion is the assessment criteria component. This is around how we would look at an event and evaluate them next to each other in terms of the impact that they're going to have across the economy and the community, and their alignment with several areas. So you have that in your report, looking at how do we weight that in relation to both the economic impact, their alignment with and that they're attracting the types of visitors from outside of the market, bringing new income into the community. And then actually that we've got the structure, governance, and their commitment to other components of council's plans, so in terms of sustainability and waste minimisation. Also on the bottom of that page, my page might not be your page, is recommending that grants would be available up to a maximum of 25% of the event delivery cost. And for the purposes of this report, this is to look at events from November 2026 through until October 2027, just based on our timeframes and making sure that we're getting events that have got sufficient time to be stood up and then deliver on the outcomes. So the options for consideration, as outlined, is using the existing community board promotion and events fund process, that's already established. It's got online forms. It's the quickest and easiest one for us to set up. The advantages to that is exactly that. Administratively and process-wise, everything's already existing. See the disadvantages being that it's a little bit less strategic. It does open it up to all applications, but it may mean that we get a lot and end up being like we need to spread the funds over more events, which may diminish the impact. And based on grant cycles and things like that, there isn't as much flexibility in how we ask of an event organizer to do in that case. Option 2 is still going out for targeting some strategic event partnerships, which this opens up. We can kind of go into those specific areas where we know have strengths, and also times of year where we're wanting to get that investment. We then look to partner specifically with those event organisers. And it may mean that through partnership agreements, that might be that they commit to delivering events for multiple years whilst still receiving the funding in that first year. The disadvantages to that is just making sure that we've got clear and transparent processes, and it may be viewed as less equitable. It does require higher governance oversight and alignment with procurement processes, and it will take a lot more resource up front to do that kind of strategic assessment and finding the right partners. The third request that came from yourselves was around investigating a float or a loan type facility, so that you would be able to kind of replenish the funds within that. So with that, it would enable an event to kind of bridge their financial gap before they're getting revenue from their tickets, therefore kind of underwriting some of those costs. Challenges with that is that it may not attract the types of events that we want to meet the criteria, and there is reservations from finance around the technicalities of doing that, and depending on the setup, it may actually be, I'm going to get the words wrong here, have some legal questions around that Financial Somethings Act. Husky, do you know what that act is? That was just an update, sorry. When I checked in with them again yesterday, they raised an extra flag from the finance team. That's option 3. Option 4 is, if you choose, you could mix. So there's the $150,000 that you've set aside out of the tourism reserves. You could decide to kind of use some funds targeted and some funds open for all, for the boat line facility and some for the other options. And at the end, the next steps there is obviously once we've got your approval, we'll be looking to get this kind of set up and out, increase some awareness for the public and with event organisers to get applications through and processed and align with council meetings. So it'd be likely something that coming back to you in September. Any questions?
Yeah, lots of questions. But significant event, like 1,500 people was a big event.
So that can be across, so if it's a 3-day event, they can show that their participants will stay for 3 days. It might be 500 people for 3 days, 1,500 additional visitors, or it could be that the event in itself might have low participant numbers, but your spectators could be really high.
Yeah, and I guess Motorsport Park would be one that would be a classic example. Come back in and trigger this and take the lot.
Yeah, well, we are there saying that we want this to attract at least 3 new significant events.
And
At least.
And I guess all options have got merit. And I guess I probably never thought that the scale you're looking at was at 1,500 editors, people, $150,000. Because at that level, and that would be a major, like a Golden Oldies tournament or that many people is a major contribution to Central. The issue I've got is the 200 or 100 people, 80 people, how they get that funding. Because to me, that's quite easy. Because it's big business.
So the smaller events still fit into the Community Board Promotion and Events Fund, and then it's how do we support those events locally that exist or do exist that are at a 400 to 500, and that can there's a range of events that exist already in the region that kind of bring in those kind of numbers. Do any of those events have the potential additional support to move up and attract more spectators or participants as well?
Because the way my head tells me it's only going to be a sports event, e.g.
Sports,
Golden Oldies tournament or
Music.
a marathon or motorsport.
So food and wine festivals, cultural festivals could be. Someone brought up the example of what about like regional kapahaka or the whole diversity of types of things that got capacity and facilities to utilise.
So where did this, so I'm a bit like Stu, I was wondering where we came to, because I can't remember, and I could have missed this, that it had to be something significant. I thought when it was meant to be a fund that was pretty open at the time that we got to there. So how did we get to that from it being something running as a float for smaller stuff as well, and now it's designed like this? How did we get to there?
So the definition of a significant event in the event framework, so it has 4 tiers. So we've got developing regional events, but
Where did we get to significant? That wasn't an intention, I guess.
I thought it was going to be an enabler for those that don't have the capital. Normally the ones that are having 1,500 plus of, they're a bit of an entity in themselves.
Apologies if that was misunderstood. That was and that's the case. I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem with that at that level. But as long as it's allowing the whatever that group is to start up, and we had biking up here on the hill, we at Martangi, you've had other things, it could be other events, as long as they're not left behind. And I guess,
so we could open it to. So as I say, in the event framework, we've got developing regional events, so that it might be in a more niche interest area, whether that is biking or another area, which is 400 to 1,500. So we could open this up for consideration at that level. We've still got the weighting and the assessment criteria for the impact of it because of the number of participants.
Because the argument is that those smaller events can still go through the community board's funding process. And this is to attract promoters from outside the district who would not normally look at us as being a viable venue, but this is a bit of a carrot, isn't it? Is that something up? Yeah.
And is that's going to be based on the basis of like the float, isn't it? Or is it going
Not
to be?
necessarily. This ties into when Supercars looked at coming here and we didn't have any mechanism to support that. So I think it's not that level where somebody's looking to start up a new thing and we're helping them get their foot in the door. This is those big events that travel around the country or around the world, and we are looking to attract Taylor Swift to the new hall facility. And
I've got no problem with this on its own.
I know she's
as long as there's enough pad in the system for the layer below, I guess. My concern is the layer below it, not this lot. This is pretty self-explanatory.
I think at that layer below, and it is different across the wards, obviously with your capacity within each individual community board. But there have been examples where you've had events come in and then had to look at, do we apply to multiple community boards at once to get value? So again, that could address that component.
If you took the 1,500 attendees, which it costs 3 different groups, 500 each, it's a subsidy from the ratepayer, $10 a person. If you took a cavalcade, they've got to fund all that themselves, but the community benefit to that, whether it be Millers Flat or Roxburgh, is huge.
And they make a profit, the cavalcade.
Yeah, and so therefore, so would this possibly. So I'm not. I've got any problem with that. It's just I want to make sure that we just don't clean out the account. The milk bottle money's not been all taken just for the big events, who will be charging $80 a ticket, of which they're subsidising 20% of it. It's the ones in the smaller groups, and it could be a half marathon around the lake in Cromwell that could attract 10,000 people. Fine, that's great. But if you did take the cavalcade, it's the only one that keeps ringing back in my mind that people have got to front foot it. And if you come to our community board, we've had a cost overspend of $2,500 on 3 projects that we wouldn't be able to afford to fund a bike race or a motocross or a Kapahaka meeting at Ramford because we haven't got it in our long-term plan. And I just, to me, the other one was, that's why the float, and Curtis and I have been talking about this, is actually that goes back through and recycles in the community rather than being at the discount on the running cost.
I don't think we should look at it as a discount or a subsidising entry fees or anything like that, because it's at that next level. It would be, they're looking for a contribution that actually supports advertising it at a national scale or something like that. It's not that your ticket price
I'm
is going
100%
to
in
be
support
cheaper.
of that. It's just as long as we've got the next layer down in the back of our mind.
This is a couple of things here in my mind anyway. This is a pilot anyway, so we are trying to take our best guess at what's going to work, but there is always going to be that opportunity as time goes on to reflect on the pilot and see if it's meeting the needs that we want. Sounds like me that we're in agreement around the table that of the intent of this in terms of a district-wide event fund to attract those next level events.
Absolutely, I'm in favour of that.
Is there any, 1,500 people, is that something that needs to be tweaked or worked at to get this across the line, or is it?
Well, it could be 3 events of 500 people. It's still significant events over a different season. I mean, I've got no problem with any part of that.
Yeah.
It's
There's
just,
nothing stopping us from going and tweaking it though.
no.
Yeah, so I think the piece there is that next tier down, which is a developing regional event. So we just include that criteria
Well,
into.
And
if I wrote the report, I'd write that we want $250,000 for this outfit, with the big events being at $150,000, and then maybe 50 or 80 or 100,000 spread across the rest, so we could pick up the small person, I guess.
Really, this is, I'd like you to go out and try and find us 3 events a year that attract 1,500 or more people to bring big things to our district. Am I reading it correctly?
Yeah.
This is what this is for.
So when the motorsport park came, for example, its early stage, I said, well, we might look and we need help to do that. And to be fair, I think it was 2 weeks after the Warbirds over Wanaka, and you could have had hundreds or thousands of people staying in Central Otago for another week. And they're the things which it helps do that.
Classic example is going to be what's coming. We know it's coming. Is the cars, the big machines. Cromwell.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a classic example, and we know there's going to be a significant amount of people
sure.
at it. And we know it's going to be well supported on that kind of fund. They might be in the situation where they say, look, we need some seed money to get cracking, or like say some advertising or something. But I would hate to see all that money gone in one hit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd have a cap.
That's what they suggested, 25%.
Yeah.
Back to your point about it being a pilot. The original January was the use of reserves.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're saying potentially if it goes well, you'll come back and want.
Yeah, and so that was part of the consideration in the LTP budget piece this morning is.
Yes, I saw that and I noted that. Yeah. So I was going to pick up on that. That's what you're talking about, is this coming back each year. But if it was a float, it wouldn't have to.
A bit of both.
But the only reason we're talking about this float is we communities can start and pay it back, and it stays in the community, and their profit stays with them. And it doesn't have to come to a contestable grant process. So we need $1,500 to gate traffic management and toilets, because it's all dealt with starting. And to be fair, a bigger event would work as well, because they put the 150,000 into doing all that for online marketing, do all that stuff and pick it up. It just picks up the.
But there is the mechanism for that $1,500 grant proven to come to your community board and say.
Yeah.
But sometimes a small event needs 20 grand, and it's outside of, it's hard to suck up. You suck up all your community board grant in one hit. So splitting it out to a regional approach with that lower tier of, a lower tier of a couple hundred, 400, 500 people and 50 grand's available for those events in a float has a bit of merit, in my opinion. The other thing I want to ask about is, in your weightings for the assessment,
given under your seasonal and geographic dispersal, I would have thought that weighting could be a bit higher. And I'll target waste management at 10 when good governance is at 10 and growth and potential and strategic leadership are at 10. I sort of feel you're overweighting environmental responsibility, and I'll potentially be in favour of that at 5 and your geographic dispersal at 20. So you do get an even spread across the region.
I'm pleased you brought that up because I was going to bring that up. I would have thought that I kept
All I would
it.
say is we had a debrief yesterday on staff support to the AMP shows. What it discovered was that those AMP shows aren't meeting our waste minimisation standards. So everything's going to landfill, which is at greater cost. So this is actually an incentive to encourage people to actually have good waste management practices. So it just doesn't go into a wall bin and get dumped at the local landfill, which isn't achieving what we wanted to. That's why there's a 10% rating for things like that.
Oh, you better be careful of what you say, because if the committee from Omakau hears it, they will not be
I know,
happy.
but the reality
Considering
is
asked
we
for the
are
things
running
to
foul of our waste management, and the levies that you're being charged to dump that stuff at the tips.
We did ask for the bins and they never arrived.
But I guess I'm curious. It's like the rest of the weighting is really good. District-wide economic could be $15, exactly the same. Well, let's look at the benefits to the community. Sure, those other things are cost and they are relative, and look, we had no ice creams there would be wrappers, and we had no beer bottles. There wouldn't be. Yeah, but I mean that should take. If you're running an event like that at 1,500 people, you've got that. That should be just a done deal. You should have it as good as you can make. I would have thought the same thing. National, your marketing distribution, that stuff should have been a high priority. That's only me. I'm pleased he brought it up.
3 hours ago, you had your hand up. They all talked. Quick.
I applaud the thinking. Just think, what if we need to tease out some of those quantifications of things? So if an event gets X and it shows a profit, is X returned back to the fund?
Depends on your method of dollar distribution.
So it's not. So we're not talking guarantees against loss or anything like that, because we've excluded those sort of things. It's an incentive to kickstart something.
Yeah.
But
Carrot.
it's a carrot. Yeah.
Very similar model to what was part of the regional events fund that was stepped up across multiple regions through the COVID period, in terms of how do we make sure we're getting these, and how do we use events as a mechanism to support regional dispersal and local business. And like in my destination update, we still get in our reporting when we're getting our market perceptions reports is, some of the main reasons we don't get people is they don't know what they could visit now, or they don't know what to do. So the more we can put out there that gives them a reason to come now through events, that just gives them the trigger to motivate them.
Have you got any, I'm thinking about what you guys have done over the last several years. Based on this, do you think, would there have been, how much uptake of this do you think that things that we've missed out on potentially that we could have achieved if we had this kind of fund?
We haven't chased anything, but we always we get inquiries from event organisers now and then, and when the conversation kind of stops, when we're kind of like, oh, there is no district events fund, here's our community board pieces, and then they go and look at what's available. The other piece with it last year, MB got the tourism event boost funding last year. That was only available to events that had committed support from their local body, and for what they were requiring, we had nothing at that scale that had existing at that level, except for Boston Festival at that time. We could have some events that we put in, which would be subject to council's community board events process, but that wasn't enough for MV to consider their applications.
The reason why I asked that question is, I wasn't sure which one of you two sent on to me a year or so ago, 2 years ago, actually, the shepherdess. And they asked me that question. I said, oh, well, you've got to go to the contestable funding. And that's for me and my brain. They were really keen on the site. But they had they needed some, because it's only the second time they'd run it. So they didn't have any money that was available. Now that definitely doesn't fit the 1,500 people requirement. Fits about the 300. And it's quite a targeted and it's expensive, but they would have made all their money back. So this is where that help.
We would have liked the Crankworks fitted into this criteria, because middle we put money into Crankworks about the same money.
Yeah.
How do you measure the success or the result?
So Crankworks, based on what they proposed, it would have talked about that and the media reach and what they were basing on spectators based on their previous events in the North Island. But then in terms of delivery, they weren't able to get the spectator numbers that they anticipated at that time, the COVID situations. But they had then had that extended media reach and brand recognition, which is that other weighting there around how do we utilise that profile that can be gained as well.
So their application.
Their application would have, and then actually the reporting back, they would have had it not achieved on numbers in terms of spectators, but would have achieved in media reach that they said.
What we can do is go back and tweak, maybe not tweak the weighting, but tweak the participant number, and also allow for that lower event.
Two-tier system, but then like.
Event.
Well, the assessment criteria doesn't, we've said significant events and that's sitting there in the background and that's clearly there. But actually, if we get 5 applicants and they're at 500 or 1,000, we're weighting those that have applied when we're doing this. And then we still need to be able to go in and go, actually, no, that's not a fit. That's not going to give the ROI to the community that we're expecting. But just by using the criteria, that can be weighted to a smaller scale event.
Yeah, I guess is when you put like an event like Trace was talking about in with the big boys, they're never going to cut it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unless you have a 2-tiered system.
Yeah.
And probably what I'm thinking, but
Currently, we do have, well, if we go ahead with this, we will have a 2-tiered system.
community.
We'll have the community
Yeah.
board ones, which have got X, and then this is
But you can clean
sort of that.
pretty quiet.
Yeah, that's my issue actually. We had to have 2,500 the item before overspend on our reserves just because we've got a group.
Was that an overspend on reserve? It wasn't an overspend. That was money which hadn't been spent. Which was sitting in reserve. So it's
So
not-
just hypothetically, like if you split it out and you had 125 for your top tier and you left your 25 and it was distributed via a float mechanism, it would let those regional startup events go and they would be revolving because you'd hope they'd be successful. You know, and it comes back every year and it gets that medium-sized event that's too big for a community grant. Community grant doesn't help them that much, but it gets them rolling, you know.
Which even to, yeah. I got no problem with the large
Yeah,
scale. That's one agenda item.
Yeah.
And tick, that to me, that's fine. It doesn't fix the group at the $20,000 and $30,000, how they continue, whether it be the mountain race or whether it be a biking event or a duathlon or a music festival. And so I just, that part is right. I mean, the environmental sustainability and all that stuff, yeah, I get all that. But the last thing we want is, it doesn't tick the environmental part because it's a motorsport race or it's a AMP show because the kids have got plastic bags everywhere. I've got to be careful we're not limiting people by higher standards than what we normally used to be there. I mean, I get all that, but
That's why there's so many components to the assessment. Remember, it's an assessment and a weighting against it, Stu. So we would
Tick box or you fail.
come to add it up.
but I like all the options, right? There's all
Yeah.
benefits of all the options. And I guess because it's taken one of the longest agenda items to have a chat today, we all got our own ideas, our communities, what is there?
And there is a risk that you're putting money into an event, which takes that money, does the event and never comes back again.
Sure.
Because we've seen that with a number of events which have, Crankworks has been and gone and has not resurfaced. The multi-sport events, which have taken significant sums of money out of the pot, been reasonably successful, but have not come back. So how do we ensure that they come back? Well, you can't.
You can't, but that's where in option 2 was how you get some kind of longer term commitment
Yes.
for negotiation with them. So
Building up that relationship, yeah, and that's where maybe some more work on option 2 needs to, I'm not too sure, having been in this industry for 40 odd years, how you actually do that. Because there's, I'll come along and take your money, first chance I get, but I'll guarantee everything and tell you exactly what you want to hear. But it's a nice little grant, which is going to improve my bottom line.
the other piece with option 2 that can be included, I'm just going to put a note for the, was around that a portion of that fund can be on successful completion. So rather than paying 100% of the grant pre-event, you're waiting for a portion of that is only released.
And you mentioned something about tying them into like a multi-year event.
Yeah, so
Fund.
that's not permissible under the promotions and events grants policy.
Yes.
And that's again where if we're going to a strategic partnership, then we can go into a different negotiation.
Yeah. I agree. It's a bit of one wonder if they're here 1 year and pay money if they're gone.
And there are organisations out there, and we're all aware of them, who go from council to council to council over, and pitching the same pitch. They just change the name of the council and get their funding and then carry it, do the events and run them quite well. Take the profit and then move on to the next, because they're promising the same regional benefits every time they do it.
Recognising that we are running quite close to the wire here and we've still got quite a lot to get through, do you want to talk about, have you guys got enough of a steer to cover off that part? Can we pick 2 councillors to be on the assessment panel?
Yeah.
So,
Which option?
yeah, so which option do we need a?
Identify an option, or are we leaving that on the table to come back with?
Well, yeah, the option 2 just about gives you that option, doesn't it?
Want to load some of it for regional event.
Yeah.
Well, it gives you a line to think that you can sort of focus and funding that.
So strategic, but we make sure that it's clearly articulated that it's kind of at that developing regional event level as well, of kind of the 400 to 500 level.
Almost a subsection.
Subset.
Yeah.
Yep, so split the fund within that, so some to developing regional and
Be
so what was
mindful,
that apportionment? The preference on your apportionment of that?
Much money you got in total?
50.
I don't know if you necessarily want to set a proportion. I think you maybe just want to say that that's available to both those groups, because it might be that there's a big event that you say, yeah, we're all in, or there's not, and you say, well, actually, we've got the whole pot available for smaller things. So long as that's in something that can be enabled, I don't think we necessarily need to say 50-50 or 40-60 or anything.
That's a bit binding. So are we pushing forward with option 2 as the preferred are we noting changes within that, or that needs to go in the resolution?
Option 2 will deliver.
Are you guys happy that you can put option 2 and we'll put that little highlight that enables both those?
Okay, so recommendation B is that we move forward with option 2 as the distribution methodology. Yeah. Appointing 2 councillors to the assessment panel. Who has a burning desire to be?
To nominate Mill.
Martin.
Martin's.
I don't think Malcolm's got a lot to say, if we're honest. He'd probably not be that great.
Pretty close, but no, I'm with you.
Anybody else? Before you know, no, in that case. Malcolm Martin. Andrew, awesome, okay.
So we're happy with option 2?
Any more discussion? 2 of us, okay, all in favour?
And then as you walk out the door, what was the vibe at Trends for Central Otago last week?
My next report.
Okay, good.
Can I have a move in a second with them? Sorry,
Yeah, good man.
Nathan and Bob, thank you, right. one person.
Sorry, I just didn't catch who were the 2 councillors, Martin.
Martin and Andrew.
Malcolm.
So were you going to change the threshold for attendees and
Yeah,
1,500.
we're include that second layer. And remembering coming back to the point, it's a pilot, so we can tweak as we go along.
See what comes in and.
Yeah.
All right, stay at the table, Anne. Tourism Central Otago Destination Management Update, if you will.
Change. So next report's just our 6 monthly update on work streams and approach to the destination management plan. Peter's query, last week we Andrea and myself and a couple of Central Otago based operators were up at Trends, which is New Zealand's biggest travel international travel trade show, where we're meeting with international wholesalers and industry around reselling Central Otago and New Zealand to the world. So yes, the vibe on the floor was there's definitely the nervousness around the Middle East, but New Zealand's in a really good place with that in terms of we're a really safe country. So Southeast Asia, definitely North America and Australia are all kind of looking here as a destination still in that coming period. And for people who are considering New Zealand, price of fuel and the airline tickets is, just one small part of that thing. So they didn't feel too much resistance to that or any changes. Lots of interest. We've got a lot of exciting new products obviously on the horizon with Cycle Trail Connections. Definitely lots of interest in night sky kind of rural wellness activities. Definitely Inchcote Castle was piquing some interest of many. So really optimistic on the floor from that. Also a lot of talk, obviously, on the floor from New Zealand-based people around the government's approach to tourism with the Tourism Growth Roadmap and Tourism Policy Statement, which hasn't been quite released yet. The Minister Upston did a speech on the Wednesday. It talks to part of that and kind of the roles of local government, central government and industry in space in the tourism sector. But the policy statement itself wasn't released, but we do anticipate that to come out in the next couple of weeks. So it'll be interesting. That document really is just kind of a good scene setter for everyone around expectations of each other up in the process. So looking forward to that coming out publicly. There was the first year at Trends that they hosted what's called International Media Marketplace. So they had journalists or media representatives from across the world there. And so in that, I met with 20 international journalists kind of looking at kind of stories that they can back and write about either as a desktop exercise or to kind of pitch to other people to come back on trips in the future. So lots of good interest there and lots of interest again in that kind of like how tourism's developing in New Zealand in line with community ambitions and regenerative tourism, how tourism's supporting the environment and cultural narratives and things like that. And so it's kind of really, again, great narrative and opportunity for us to kind of highlight the work that happens here from our community groups and organisations supporting that, and also the work that's happening with Okaha and Mana Whenua in different spaces around Central Otago as well. So we kind of, it's been an invisible layer to our offering. Fantastic working with them and being able to have some components that we can now share. That was Trends. In terms of the summer season, again, so the domestic market kind of was, I think, feeling a little bit more buoyant and optimistic through the season. We finally got some spend data out of the government with the return of the MRTEs. And so there was kind of some monthly highlights in the report there around March. Central Otago performing quite strongly on the national picture, which is great. It is our traditional peak season, so it's to see those numbers looking positive. International markets, especially Australia, have been key in that in terms of numbers, but actually on dollar spend, the US is our highest spending international visitor market. So the exchange rate being very favourable to US travellers. Market perceptions report. So this is a piece of work we get completed by Angus and Associates. They've just moved to an online dashboard, so we'll be able to kind of share that link with you soon. But this really gives us kind of how Central Otago is being perceived by recent travellers to region, but also those who've been historically or never been, and where kind of some of our areas of strength or weaknesses are in assessing that change over time. And as I touched on earlier, continues to be that, you know, people don't have that specific reason to visit or motivation. So events or new cycle trails or increased awareness of the Naseby community with Dark Sky and things like that just give reason to bring Central Otago front of mind. Skipping over a few things in the kind of main project space for the team. Doing a lot of work around re-looking at how we share bits of information and inspiration across the district. So this is what information and how we deliver the information within our through eyesights in Ranfurly and Roxburgh, but also how do we create more mechanisms to share that story in a consistent way through operators or other council facilities, and what is the training or tools that we can provide industry for that. And an example in there is Shirley from the Ranfurly Eyesight was working with Te Aki Maniatoto. They've developed some information panels around all of the work they've been doing out there that we're going to get installed inside the centre. In the digital space, continuing to do our enhancements to the website. We've just got some testing links this week for some visual updates to centralotagoNZ.com with some of the work again through Okaha and Mana Whenua. And the regional identity. So Brunel and I will be able to bring that to you in the near future once we've teased out all the bugs in the system. Events we've obviously just spent a long time on. The other fund you allocated from tourism reserves at the start of the year was around developing a business and product development accelerator program and developing some investment cases. So in terms of that, we're looking at focusing in on the business accelerator in the next financial year. So starting from 1 July in 26-27, and early discussions and an internal working group has been set up around that investment case for fraction of accommodation with a primary focus on Cromwell. So Dylan Rushbrook is leading that group, but it's got various parties from council involved in that. And back to you. Future business events are about to go into the biggest national trade show for the business event sector next month in June. They'll also, Te Puna Mahara will also be attending alongside, and Highlands will have a really good Central Otago presence at the event. That's again trying to bring in that conference and incentive market into Central Otago and having what will now be the newest event centre in the country. Sorry, New Zealand International Convention Centre. That's old news. But yeah, lots of excitement around that and great to have the team from Mahara attending. Our Southern Way activities continued, which is our partnership with the other tourism organisations and has been well funded through central government initiatives. We've actually had some post-trends meals coming through the region this week. I met them, they'd had an opportunity to drive through from the Waitaki, call into Naseby, see a bit of what's going on in Naseby, ride on the rail trail and down here into Clyde to experience some of our beautiful food and wine and accommodation, and then took off down through the Teviot to explore Clutha. Cycle trails, we've been filming, the Otago Trails Marketing Group's been filming a movie which is going to be premiered at the New Zealand Mountain Film Festival in mid-June. This is really kind of building the awareness of the diversity and the connected nature across Otago and Southland of the Great Rides Network and our back roads as a kind of bikepacking itinerary that's available for all levels, or can be stitched together in various ways. So there's a very stunning piece of work. I've only seen the snippets of it, but very excited to see that, and great that off the bat that's got straight into New Zealand Mountain Film Festival, and then it's also been accepted into the Big Bike Film Festival in Australia. So that's a New Zealand-based film festival that travels around. So they were already doing their New Zealand tour. So we were too late for that, but they've put it into Australia. Lots of great work by our operators and cycle trail trusts out on the trails through the main season. Recently, Lake Dunstan Trail celebrated its 5th birthday, reporting that over the 5 years since opening, that had 285,000 riders through the trail. And then with the announcement this week of an official opening weekend for the Caldwell Gorge Trail in September, we are a little bit nervous about the kind of numbers we'll obviously see coming through on that trail. So there'll be a lot of work through the Trails Marketing Group and with the trust around that. And the recent support of getting that connecting link up in council up to Bannockburn from Felton Road is a good step in that and around how do we move people safely into our communities. And then from a media and campaigns perspective, just to close, continue to get great media coverage of Central Otago through a range of channels. Recently, there's been some fantastic work from Night Skies, Cycle Trails, Food and Wine, and that ranges from individual influencers to national publications and international publications, and even former celebrities like Gary Barlow coming in and getting a little taste for Central Otago.
Do you want to watch? If he watches this, you're in.
Yeah, a very big show for
Sorry,
those.
Gary, your career's over.
And we also did a partnership with the Save the Kiwi Trust. They approached us earlier in the year around they were already bringing their Kiwi Art Trail down to the New Zealand Golf Open in Arrowtown, and they wanted to take that out and try putting it in some different locations. So seized that opportunity, and they put the Kiwi Art Trail into Bannockburn and then at various wineries in Bannockburn and for a month, and then came down and scattered them along the rail trail between Clyde and Alex. And it was just another, in that time when we had a range of school holidays, the New Zealand Motor Caravan Association really, it's another experience to try and encourage people to explore a little more, and with some stunning pictures of beautiful artistic Kiwis scattered around Central Otago. So it's a fun little extra project.
Questions?
A couple of questions.
Oh, hang on. Bob wanted to
Well,
speak.
we're going tonight.
Let Bob have a little turn first.
I see Bob's there.
You wait all bloody day, go on.
I was just going to say, there's one or two sort of anonymous ones as well, aren't there? The recent one, they call it One New Zealand ad.
Yeah.
Which is featured
Oh, yeah.
many different sort of views of Central Otago, and we don't get a credit. So
Yeah.
Golden Dragon.
That's great. That's facilitated through Film Otago, so that's
Yeah.
Ellie here. Work with the crew there. So that's again, that's a partnership through council's support of the Film Otago and our film friendly policy.
Go on, Stu.
Sorry, you said that with the tourism was the 9th biggest growth. Who was first? Central Otago, I thought had been higher up than 9th in New Zealand for the percentage of growth.
Sure.
No, it's okay.
Feel like it was either Southland.
Southland.
Southland had a great March.
It's on our boundary, I guess I'm saying. I would have thought Queenstown, South and Wanaka would be as big a growth areas in tourism this year than anywhere.
Queenstown wasn't. Queenstown for the month of March proportionally didn't see the growth. So the growth was dispersal, which is yeah.
The amount of saturation that was going on there.
This is probably one for you, is are we negotiating with Air New Zealand about flights? Because we've got the Southern Way, which I think works exceptionally well. They come into Queenstown or into Dunedin down into Queenstown. The real risk is Air New Zealand's going to shut down the potential we have for growing the industry, which we spent a lot of time and ratepayers' money doing.
Already cut a lot of flights out of me.
That's what I mean. So the real risk is that Air New Zealand are going to determine the pattern of our growth in tourism.
I think Ants can give you the state of the play there.
Yeah, so obviously Air New Zealand's in a very challenging situation. So we do have great relationships with their team. And Tamer and Peter and myself ended a meeting with Air New Zealand in March. They are, I think from a domestic perspective, obviously Dunedin has been our source market airport that's had the biggest reductions in flights. Queenstown, I think, will remain strong. because of demand, especially going through into the winter season.
Hasn't had any reductions.
Hasn't had reductions, and I think they'll also be looking at, they are finally getting some new planes on deck. They have been limited actually by actually having enough planes to start with. So it's then around how do they redistribute that, which is going to be based on demand. And, you know, the more we can work ourselves and with our partners and regions to make sure that we're a destination of choice. Really what we can do then making business decisions unless the government tells them otherwise.
They've also just launched direct flights from Christchurch to Singapore and Tokyo are coming, as well as Perth, and that will have, we know that people love to fly
That's
to
right.
Christchurch and then drive through our district, so.
Yeah, just the Southern Way promotion was really, really positive. I think it's just a shame to think that the risk is that in New Zealand, because of fuel prices or financial crisis, it could be a limiting factor. And there is huge demand coming through on the tourism network of people who've had traveling or visiting or promotions or whatever. There's a massive demand, and that is a concern that we've got most of our businesses or trail hotels and that around that are struggling financially or to get sold. You know, the real risk is we could have a road from Omakau right through to Central that we have a lot of those businesses can't survive the economic crisis we're just coming out of, hopefully. So I hope that when some of that economic development money we're thinking may be helping prospective buyers get a really good look at the tourism budget so they can invest with infrastructure, because it's all very well starting up someone who wants to sell poppies on the side of the road and some toffee pops, but their existing businesses make sure that they get support, and not necessarily financial, but business support, and put them in link to the right places, because if we lose the existing infrastructure, all these numbers will just start muddling.
Queenstown Airport are just embarking on a project, aren't they, to put in a taxiway, which is going to be
A dual runway, which means they can.
That's right. They can
And faster.
flights that they can
Backtracking on the runway.
I've just got one question, if you don't mind. You mentioned about the meeting, the trade show in Auckland in June. Do you have the dates for that?
Yeah, so the business events is 18th and 19th of June. Or they either side of those days.
Right, okay.
In that case, recommendations that report be received. Anybody move that?
I'll do that.
Okay, those, put a hand up first. Stu, you can second. All in favour? Any against? Motion carried. And Stu, it's your turn.
3.5 on free bridge replacement procurement, 145 million total road.
Afternoon all. So we only have two reports to bring to the table today. The first one being a procurement for replacement of Bridge 145 on the north. We currently have a temporary bailey bridge there in place, and we have funding on the LTP to proceed with that. And secondly, just bringing to the table probably a new report, just ticking some legal requirements around temporary closure, winter closures for some of our backcountry roads and tracks. So I'll hand over to Holly to present those two reports.
Good afternoon. So yeah, starting with the Maniatoto Road. So I'll take the report as read. So Bridge 145 is located on Maniatoto Road, where it crosses the Taieri River, approximately 10 kilometres southwest of Ranfurly. The original bridge was damaged in a flood in January 2021, with a temporary bailey bridge has been in place since October 2022. So this bridge is an important local connection, hence our proposal to procure a design and build contract for the permanent replacement of this bridge. So the replacement bridge is expected to be single lane, which is consistent with the existing bailey and what was there before. It is also assumed that the replacement will sit within the available road reserve slightly to the east of the existing bridge. This is an opportunity to create a better overall alignment, as the tight bend at the existing southern bridge approach is actually quite difficult for some of the larger vehicles to manoeuvre around. The location will need to be confirmed through geotechnical, hydraulic and land survey assessments, however.
So the procurement plan proposes a 50% weighting for price and obviously 50 for the non-price attributes. This maintains a strong price tension while still allowing council to consider the relevant experience, methodology, program and risk management of the submissions. So the current total budget provision for, including the design, construction and project management is 1.38 million. So to conclude, we are seeking the approval of the procurement plan for the tendering of Bridge 145 replacement. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Tracy?
Sarah, well, I'm not sure where this question is going to go to. It could be down at Peter's end. No problem with the report at all. What I have a problem with is that we have got there is the estimated costs. And this has gone out through all and sundry. And I am wondering, and this is a across the board generic question as opposed to this specific one, but this one's been targeted because it's right there. Absolutely, we need the report. Yeah. But the actual estimated costs, is there any way that we can have that in, so we don't actually have to see that in the public part, so that they're actually, that price tension, which is the 50% at the moment, becomes a little bit more. So, because just in trying to create that amongst
I
tenderers.
guess the budget's still in the LTP.
Yep.
And getting through in the LTP. I think you're going to get price tension no matter what, and you typically provide an engineer's estimate as part of your procurement, and that's what we actually assess the prices against in terms of that 50% price component. So it's not, I don't believe it will drive any sort of aim to hit that number type approach, because you will get the best bid, or else the risk is if someone goes lower, you lose. So you're going to get that price tension regardless through it, and that budget is public information anyway through our long-term plan. It's listed against that project in our transport activity plan, and anyone who is tendering or would typically be tendering in this space would have an understanding of what's in our budgets, and those suppliers look and meet with us and understand what's coming and refer to those documents, so they know what our available budget is for different projects.
This has been a really hot topic recently and has been generating national media attention because, of course, everybody knows how much we've got to spend when we go out for something for tender. It is the joy of operating within the Local Government Act requirements that we have, and also our responsibilities to set a delegation. If we set it at $10 million, then QP could just go off and organise it all and nobody would ever see what the prices were. But that's some of the reality of the fact that we are not able to undertake all of this budget approval in publicly excluded setting, whereby they've got no idea what the price is. But it just would highlight to all contractors and those tendering, the higher the price, the higher your rates will be. Contractors. Back to that.
But to your point, it could be in public excluded, specifically when you bring the procurement plan through, because you're talking about the weightings.
They'll get that procurement plan.
Do they already?
Yep. So they will know what they're being assessed against as part of it. So that's again public notice.
The argument, and I would be the bearer of the news, is the procurement wrong.
Yeah.
Procurement follows best practice, because we've actually reviewed that recently over the last 18 months. And there is tension because we do get a number of tenders and we do see the variation. And, you know, we do the weighted, and you've seen the weighting. It's done with the price off to one side and all that sort of stuff. So there's a lot of tension done in the tenders. So, you know, we're getting the best value for money at a price that we think achieves the best value for money.
Yeah, and I guess our role is that we've got potential 4% rate and we've got hundreds of millions of dollars over time to spend on bridges. That a bridge is a bridge. It's a concrete structure that can be bought from someone and put in there. And all I'm saying, as I brought it up probably like a broken record for the last 10 years, is the weighting on something as significant as a bridge, 60-40, because the other attributes should all be the same. So if we're going to be talking about exactly what Tracy's point is, well, therefore the pricing structure might move. That it's because that between tenders, I understand that, and so there's been some massive variances by tenders.
And I think it's fair to say, over the last year, as a result of council's concerns, that the pricing weighting wasn't right.
so previously we would have maybe been at the 60% attributes. And in all honesty, around like design build, design choices drive long-term cost and everything like that. Having assurance that the contractor you're procuring can deliver those other aspects in terms of they've got that history of delivering these projects and everything like that, and the methodology confirmed as being appropriate and scored that way. If you just went 100% price, the risk is you'll get someone that's going to give you a lot less quality. Whereas 50%, 50-50 maintains a certain amount of price tension, but ensures that we get a good contractor delivering it.
The irony of that is though, they subcontract out. So, and yeah, they take the overall responsibility, but they still subcontract that out. But anyway, yeah, I get your point. It's just something that's, and I've discussed it here at this table before. It does bug me that it feels like we're putting out a target for people to work towards. And look, I'm not suggesting that what you guys are saying is wrong. There's definitely nothing there, but it's just, yeah. And you do hear a lot of people, there's that noise from even people who are in the industry saying, oh, they could do it for less than that. But that, I understand there's other things that you've got to consider.
But their bid would be like, they will have margin on whatever they do because they have to make money at the same time.
Absolutely, I don't have a problem with that.
They're not going to know what company A versus company B versus company C is putting in, so they will put in what they are comfortable in terms of their price plus their margin and considering risk and everything like that. Part of their tender, they'll be putting their best foot forward. And we've seen people not put necessarily their foot forward, and it's where you get a different contractor doing something or something like that. So in the other tenders we've seen great recognition of attributes and good price tension up to 50-50. And a number of suppliers bidding for it.
And that's just about the perfect scenario, right? And I guess when we started this conversation a few years ago, we've gone from 60-40 to 50-50 and we're still getting the result. I mean, that's our job, representing the ratepayer, to make sure we get value for money. And if you're a contractor that isn't going to give us value for money, you just don't get the contract. And attributes pick that up. So I'm happy with that. And it'd be good to see that bridge get something definitely underway for it because it's been a long time in there. There's a lot more.
But just a final bit to add to as well too, like we have got some process that we have to follow for our funding with the NCTA. So they have a procurement manual. And like a 50-50 split sort of, it is at the higher end, but it's certainly it's very applicable to design build contracts, and they do like to see a higher split on design builds because there's obviously risk there. So we have got some process to follow as well too. So we can't just willy-nilly, decide what splits we want. There is some guidance in that procurement manual to get our 51% funding as well too. So that's the other little bit of the picture.
It'd be great if there was a really, really awesome civil construction outfit that came in with a cookie cutter approach to bridges in New Zealand, wouldn't it? Just putting that out there.
It'd be a good start if Transit New Zealand had a model which someone would come in and build a bridge to that, and they haven't even got one. So there's a lot of work to be done in bridging, Tracy. But thank you for your input.
Thank you.
Got a few bridges to replace. So.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, a funding cycle that would give some good forward work for contractors and designers would really help with that approach as well too.
Throw it out there, and even a funding cycle that aligned with our funding cycles would be fantastic.
Any other questions?
Happy to move.
Second, Tracy, second. Those all in favour? Yeah. Carried. Thank you very much. Next, this will be an exciting paper. This one. A lot of rural background.
I'll take this report as read as well. But to quickly summarise, so motor vehicles using unsealed roads can cause significant damage during winter and early spring. This impacts not only road safety, but access, and it can also significantly increase the maintenance costs. So the Local Government Act 1974 allows for the temporary closure of certain types of road. And for many years, the first 7 of the roads listed in this report have been closed annually from the first Tuesday of June, and that's had good results. So we've received public service requests to include some additional roads into the closure program. These include Mount Buster, Little Kyburn, Serpentine, Lindburn Runs, Blackball, and Long Valley Ridge roads. So the full resolution is outlined in the discussion section on page 248, noting that the conditions do allow access for affected farm properties so that they can continue their operations. So we request that council resolves to allow the temporary closure of these roads and the additional ones to motor vehicles as per the resolution outlined on page 248.
Have any questions? Curtis?
The, in addition to your new ones, your old ones have been shut, but there's been no enforcement on one I know of. So with this, I talked to QP at large. Yeah, we need to make sure we get gates swung, padlocked, shut, because they've been shut for years, you're right, but they haven't been shut.
Yes, so we've actually gone through a bit of a process leading up to the seasons where we've done some improvements on some of the, getting some bulkier gates and what have you.
Just a gate in the first place.
Yeah. So Bridge Hut's got new gate installed at the bridge, and then some of the others we've improved because people have been lifting off the hinges so much that they weren't actually particularly useful. So we've gone through and tidied that up, and so hopefully we see benefits from that.
Good work.
So it is following on from that, because I know a few out in my corner, and a lot of these are, where you'll get undesirables will just run over the gate post or cut the fences or smash the roads. I know it's a cost, but is there a recovery or some way in which that could be administered or looked at or surveillance, or how do we, if we did wheelies outside the KFC shop and wrecked up the road, the police would be involved in saying you're damaging public stuff, but the farmers up there, and a lot of them have been pushing because farmers will have their own fences cut and damaged, and we saw that even in media lately. How do we police other than putting a bigger gate, and is it an issue? But it'll be a cost to us, which is obviously.
Yeah, it is unfortunately a difficult one. You sort of have to catch them in the act. So we've selected areas where hopefully there's some farmhouses nearby. It's always past the last sort of driveway, just to try and make it less in the middle of nowhere. But unfortunately, we can't keep drivable vehicles out.
I mean, some of the farmers will have cameras in those places where it is locked, and that information may be able to be shared with the council or the police. Majority of them will have dirty trucks that are driving around Roxville one day that have come from our side and vice versa. But a lot of people see those tracks as entertainment and still with the restrictions. But never mind, it's back.
Use our elected members' security camera allowance and
Yes. You contribute
You're gonna
funds back
apply
to the
for one
community.
and not put it at your home address, Curtis.
You're pretty safe.
Skin the cat. Approved.
Right, any more questions?
We got the big boss man. He's
So I'm saying that you'll move the recommendations, Curtis?
Can I just ask a question?
Oh, yes, sorry, Tracy.
If there was other roads that wanted to be put onto this,
No.
they just let council know?
We actually have one potentially to table as well if we want to.
Yeah, so I guess we'll work on this on an annual resolution piece. So it'll come back to any future ones that wish to be considered can come back in a future resolution to close over that winter period. So we do have timeframes to meet for our current closures with advising Minister for Transport and those, but yeah, would encourage anyone to reach out. And a lot of farmers have, and hence the addition of these new ones.
Yeah.
with some of these newer ones, you have a plan to communicate that?
We've already spoken to the locals there that are impacted, and we've spoken to conservation as well, particularly around that Buster. So we have done comms already, and then there'll be signs, obviously new gates and fences where required.
And I know this is an issue that came up while I talked about it. Do you notify the Google Maps? And one of those ones here, the Blackpool especially, is the shortest route to the Styx Valley, where big trucks, North Island trucks will come through, take the shortest route. I mean, so I guess once they get committed in there and they get stuck, they're in trouble. But is there a mechanism with the transport industry or maps where it's road closed comes up on their GPS? Is there an ability that can be a temporary closure to that road?
Google Maps isn't very responsive.
I just wondered, one of the ones missing, and I'm not sure if it falls under this category or not, is the Old Man Piano Flat one that goes over the back to Southland, where all those four-wheel drives got stuck. Does that not count as one of our back
Wakai Bush Road.
That's.
So Southland do
Southland.
close, Southland do close that.
Do we close it from our side though as well?
Outside.
No,
We assessed that there's no area where we could put the gate. They're on the wrong side. There's
so
no
it's
sort of,
just around access points into it and fencing road reserve and different things like that.
Yeah, like so basically there's other rack routes that you can get into our section of Waikaya Bush Road.
Yeah.
And to do anything, there's no boundary fence, there's no fencing there at all that we can actually physically do anything across the road.
Yeah.
The only conversation we could have is possibly with SDC and actually putting a secondary gate still on their alignment.
I get that why we want to put gates, but lots of them just have a sign.
Yeah.
This road is closed between these dates. Which then creates some implications if people choose to drive that way and then come a cropper, because then potentially insurance will not cover them because they are now driving on a closed road.
Yeah.
So even if, if it's too difficult to put a fence, maybe it's easy enough to put a gate.
Just a sign that comes up and down for the season.
As long as the same rules apply for the landowner.
If you're the
The
landowner,
landowner can use these roads, you see, and they're temporary closed.
That would be the same.
doesn't matter, you're covered under your farm
Yeah.
policy.
it's the same as the conditions in the resolution.
Yeah.
And I note it's for farming activities, so that'll cover people like a vet coming out to do work.
Correct, yeah.
And there's also
yeah.
the second condition, which is that if they've got a reasonable be in there that's not necessarily farming related, they can apply to the roading department to get permission through as well. So if it's someone from the Department of Conservation having to do something that's in that area, they'd be
If
allowed.
it's cold, they'll be in the office and they'll be in the. Any more questions?
No, I'm happy to go.
Curtis moved, can someone second it?
Yeah, Bush Road or we're looking at it.
Nathan?
I think it'd be worth adding Waikaya Bush Road, given how many
Yes.
issues we've had with that specific road.
And so we just need that added to.
And remind you of that, why can't I?
Here's some background, like Highbush Road and like got taken.
Yep, sure.
We actually had John closer with like Highbush Road. And in the end, there's actually a snow cap comes across the road that typically stops people going up there, but it's used for cross-country skiing quite a bit. You'll remember there was a heap of vehicles got stuck up there a few years ago. So the road is too fast, and we didn't bother putting the gate in because the skiers were trying to get in there.
If you're cross-country skiing, you can walk
Yeah,
with
they
skins
walk,
on your
they walk.
skis. And
But the snow cap actually was stopping.
Apparently that's
People who got stuck in there, they came in from the other end.
It's good to. All right, you got that, Wayne?
Yeah, we'll go Bush Road.
All those in favour? As against, carried. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. And Nate.
Cheryl.
So we're up to page 329, item number 26.5.15, compliance status update. Who do we get? Julie, you gonna come? I'm representing Philippa today. She's away on a course. So there's a bit more in this report. It's usually really standard. I guess the highlight for the last quarter has been lifting of the Roxburgh wastewater treatment plant abatement notice. So that was a bit of a momentous moment for us. We do have one remaining abatement notice at the Renfrewley wastewater treatment plant, and we anticipate that that'll be lifted later this calendar year. We've done the desludging of the ponds and reinstated the wetland now, and it just will take a bit of time over the winter for the pond to settle back down and the plants to get established in the wetland. And once the weather heats up, then the activity and biological activity in the pond will improve and it'll be back.
So what you're saying is because the plants aren't growing yet because they're going into winter,
Yeah.
even though the plants have been planted and they're intended to grow, it still breaches the regional council.
Yeah, it's not so much just the plants, it'll be the pond activity too, the biological activity in the pond. It'll get
It's a bit
secure.
like saying we're going to paint the building, but the paint's dry, so it's not finished yet.
It's not compliant until the samples are all compliant.
It's nothing to do with the quality of the water in the plant. It's just that it's not functioning as the way it would have been if the plants were a year old.
It's not just the waste, the wetland, it's also the pond active, the performance of the ponds, and they were affected by the amount of sludge that was in the pond. So we think that that'll address that problem.
It looks like you're in Japan in a rice paddy.
To be honest, we wouldn't anticipate seeing that much water normally. Raining away, the plants will be sucking it up. So we had, I think you'll see in there that there has been a significant improvement trend in compliance over time. And the only red now is that one compliance abatement notice at Renfrew. I think another thing that we should be proud of is that through all this, we've actually maintained a really respectful and collaborative working relationship with the ORC. And albeit they've got quite a, a regulatory oversight role, but there is a good working relationship between both teams. So we've also had, it's about a 4 to 5 year audit that gets taken on our water consents. So there's actually 30 water consents that are held by CODC. So overall, there's been a high level of compliance there as well. We did get one abatement notice issued for Imacare. So that relates to a discharge that comes out of the water treatment plant when we use PAC, which is used when there's high sediment in the river to make all the particles stick together so that we can filter them out of the water. It was when we're using PAC that we get that discharge occur. So that will be removed as part of the construction of a new water treatment plant at Omacare. And we also have about 20 legacy test bores around the district that have been drilled to try and find water. So when people think we haven't gone out there hunting for other sources of water, this is probably the evidence of all that work that's been done. So over the next 12 months, we'll be decommissioning all of those so that we don't hold consents for them anymore. We've also reported on the Te Mata Arawai sump compliance because the annual report got submitted to them in the last quarter. What's probably of note there is there was 10,862 water samples taken and analysed across the whole network, of which one sample was incorrectly taken, which produced an incorrect result. So that was where a tap wasn't run for long enough before taking the sample. Te Mata Arawai's focus has up until now been very much on ensuring all critical barriers, that there's critical barriers in place on all water treatment plants. So that's making sure that there is a protozoa barrier and there is bacterial barrier in place. We've recently just moved the UV container from Ranfurly to Omacare, which now ensures we do have all the quite robust critical barriers on all of our sites. In the next 12 months, Te Mata Arawai's enforcement strategy is shifting its focus from just looking at compliance with make sure there's a critical barrier there to making sure there's full compliance with all rules. So we've put 2 graphs into that report. One shows the compliance against the critical barriers and the other one against all the rules. So we will shift our focus now into making sure that we have everything in place to meet the compliance requirements across all rules. So that can be things like we'll need to bring a backflow prevention policy to council because that's a requirement under the rules to have a policy in place. We'll also be doing some minor upgrades at Roxburgh and Naseby to just make those plants fully compliant with all of the rules. So while they have a UV at Naseby and Roxburgh, they don't meet the full requirements. Regulations. And we'll also be having to roll out continuous monitoring this year across the network because we're required to be able to report continuously the rules that they're going to be enforcing going forward. So it'll reduce the costs of some of the sampling that has to get done by putting this continuous monitoring devices around. So they'll pick up whether there's adequate residual chlorination in different parts of the network. So people don't have to run out there taking samples every couple of days.
Questions? Well done, the abatement being lifted.
I think, it's kind of a demonstration of why costs of Three Waters have gone up in the last 5 years. This is not stuff that 5 years ago we were looking at.
Okay, so the recommendation is that the report be received. Do I have a mover and a seconder?
Yeah.
Bob? Drew? In favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you, Julie.
And local government from page 280. Welcome, Saskia.
And Alex is joining as well.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, councillors. While this paper is very straightforward, I think that the conversations that we follow may not be. Take the paper as read, and in essence, last year, the government proposed some reform in local government, which essentially would see the mayors of the territorial authorities to develop a new system of governance and delivery across the region, which essentially would disestablish the regional council governance, not the regional council functions, but the governance of the regional council. The government had considerable feedback on this proposal, and we did submit your call on the proposal. In fact, all Otago councils did. And as a consequence of the feedback, not directly related to any feedback we gave, but other councils, is that the council has announced, the government have announced a voluntary Head Start pathway. In essence, for those regions that are ready to put in a proposal on the 9th of August about how they might reorganise themselves, a select number will be chosen from the number that get put through to go forward with legislation next year. There is still going to be an alternative pathway. It is very unclear what that will be, and little detail has come out to date on that. But in essence, the government has signalled that those that don't end up in the Head Start pathway will end up in this alternative pathway, more to come, likely post-election, and that there will be legislation in place for the 2028 local body elections around what the new world would look like. So the mayor attended the mayoral forum on Friday, and I want to hand it over to the mayor just for any comments you'd like to make on the discussions there and where the Otago mayors are in their thinking.
Right. Well, but that I made, because they were extensive. From this point, and some of you might have seen that today we have opened the online consultation for all of the people of Otago at the same time, being asked the same questions. Everybody can find the link via our website, and we'll in as many channels as we can. That's not to go out to the public to say, who do you want to hold hands with, or who do you want to join up with? It's to go out to say what's important to do when it comes to local government. We haven't had a review of what our actual system is and does since 1989, which is quite a long time ago. This is our opportunity to really not just talk about mergers. This might be talking about the form and function of local government. And a big part of those conversations across Otago will be, what are the trade-offs for local voice versus efficiencies versus cost savings. We've looked through our LTP budgets this morning, and we know that costs only continue to go in one direction. And local government has for many years been saying that the current system is not fit for purpose into the future. The landscape has changed so much on what we deliver compared to what we delivered in 1989, and Julie's just highlighted it. You know, that actually there are some real challenges for Central Otago District to continue to deliver that on our own in the current shape and form that we are in. But we don't yet know what it might look like as an alternative, and we haven't got any kind of preconceived ideas as to what that might be. I've already started receiving some informal feedback from people, and they're pretty clear about one particular thing, but we'll see where that gets to down the track. The real challenge at the moment is there is zero detail around what the alternatives are. So there is the Head Start process, which we could spend a whole load of time and money pursuing either individually or as a group of councils, which is contingent on the current government being re-elected at the end of this year, which may or may not happen. and then them implementing the legislation that is required come 2027. So in the meantime, we still have to proceed with all of the stuff that we're currently obliged to do under the current government structure and legislation. The next thing is they have already indicated that whoever puts in for Head Start process, they're only going to pick a few. There has been a suggestion that they might have capacity for somewhere between 4 or 6. That is spitballing. Nobody knows that. When we were asked to organise ourselves to put forward the Three Waters entities, we managed to consolidate the 70 odd councils into 42 entities. So even if we were like really amazing at, you know, mergers and talking to our neighbours, then say we got to 20, that still means 3/4 wouldn't proceed. And there is no detail on what happens if you put forward a Head Start proposal, but then aren't chosen. There's also no detail on what happens if you enter the backstop process. We don't know what that looks like. We don't know what the timeframes are. We don't know what it means when the minister says he's got a big stick and it will be done to us. That could mean any one of a number of things. So we're kind of flying blind while building the plane, while considering if we even still need a plane or do we in fact need a boat instead. So
We've got a runway.
we might have a runway, we might have a patio, we might have a merry garden path. Who knows? It is very, very difficult at the moment. But probably the best thing for us and our council right now is that all of the councils in Otago are talking together and we are trying to collaborate wherever we can in terms of sharing the cost of this investigation phase. And it doesn't mean that we are particularly wedded to any idea about amalgamation or sharing back office expenses. It just means that when it comes to things like modelling, the further you can spread that cost, the cheaper it will be for our people. So I'm really hopeful that our consultation will have a really big uptake, especially since it's only 4 questions. And the first one is, where do you live? So it's certainly not difficult. But I would like to get a bit of a steer from you guys as to thoughts around the process, noting that this is a really tight time frame. At the moment, no Otago councils have committed to the Head Start process. We're just committed to making sure that is a pathway for us if we wanted to take it. So we're moving at pace so that if we decide we want to put something in for the 9th of August, we're actually in a position to do so.
All the other changes which are going on in local government legislation, RMA reform, we run a huge risk of not only having elected member burnout, but serious council staff burnout. And as you said, you know, we Bishop's threatening the stick, but we have no idea what the punishment's going to be. Some of us might want to get a good beating, but you know, it's
you can.
Speak for yourself. It frightens me that we're going to go down a path and spend limited resources, limited time, cost implications, and have a result which is going to be totally meaningless. Or even we come to a result which then, by some whim coming out of Wellington, gets turned over and changed.
There have been some discussions at a broader level around, and I don't know that anyone from any of the other parties has come out and said it directly, but there does seem to be an enthusiasm to not have what we had with Three Waters, where it was a complete 180 and everything that had been spent was a waste of time and money. That there is an enthusiasm from all of the main parties in government to continue to pursue something in this.
I agree with that because, I mean, Labor did initiate the first process of the reformation of local government. So it was a process where we were invited to participate as opposed to being said, if you don't participate, we're going to change you anyway.
Well, but this is a voluntary process, Martin. They're very clear about it.
Yeah, I know it just concerns me that, you know, we're putting a lot of time and effort and energy into something and other things may be missing out. And I'm looking at our policy people down the top end of the table who've got enough on their plates. And if there's any way we can sort of not do this.
It'd be awesome if the communities of New Zealand turned around to the government and said, no, local government belongs to us and we want you to fund it appropriately. But
Okay.
until we get a community pushback against the government, we have got really limited options. And the
But
challenge for us is that for many, many years, we have been the dog's body and the whipping boy for central
Yes.
government to deliver functions that arguably should be delivered by
But
them.
we have a role in this broader community to actually challenge our community and put out the alternate view, which we're not doing particularly well at this current. I know we've got a process going on, but as elected members, we have a role to voice our concerns about this proposal means to us in the future.
And arguably, the challenge on that is that we have at this council said we can't maintain the status quo. Something needs to change. So we're not in a position to push back on the government and say, "Fuck it off, we don't want this," because we know it needs to change.
But this is not the change that we envisaged. We envisaged a process whereby we're partners in the collaboration around the change, not it being dictated to us. Because currently it's not a partnership. It's very much a communication which is going one way. And it's their way or the highway. Now, we go out to our publics and I think as community leaders, we need to actually say, hang on, guys, this isn't what you think it's going to be. Bigger does not necessarily mean better. The savings which Wellington is propagating, is saying that it's going to happen through this, is where are these savings?
That's why we are going to the modelling, which we did when we were looking at Three Waters. So Otago councils have asked an organisation to do modelling based on, so that when we are looking at it to say, does it make any sense to merge, we can understand what the financials look like.
And what really angers me is that as the CODC over the 20 odd years I've been around this table have done a bloody good job. And I don't like being put into the same basket with other councils who haven't, who are carrying massive debt burdens because of they've put off spending because they've been too scared to. We've faced those challenges head on and done them reasonably successfully.
Probably that puts us in quite a good position. There's nobody around us that I know of pointing at Central Otago District Council and saying, don't you dare partner with them, because we are in a strong position.
I mean, yeah, exactly. And I think that's
Good governance.
and good management too. And I think if there's a message that I want to see go out to our community is don't buy into the BS that this is going to save you ratepayers' money. It will not. It will end up costing you more. It's just rubbish. The fact is that Wellington is saying this is going to solve all your problems. It's not.
I fully support that last statement of money. This will not save money from where I sit, but find out. Three things that are important from people I talk to is the representation of small and rural communities within a larger entity. So whatever comes out, the representation structure needs to be looked at very carefully. Proportionality of based on population may not be the option that serves everyone best. The second is already touched on. We have the best finances of all the people around us, so it will need to be fenced in the organisation. Lastly, we need to maintain the Central Otago identity. So I would hate to see us carved up and go in different directions to suit other people.
I'll just add to that. I think the biggest risk we face are small rural communities, whichever way it happens. And every time we turn on the news or the radio now talk about economic stability within our environment, rural New Zealand is leading the way. It won't just be our rural communities in Central Otago, it'll be across Otago, South and Canterbury and the North Island. So I just hope we do get that representation. I would like to think if we are going to be a unitary authority, we're a big enough unitary authority to have a say and not be pushed around. And that's going to be a big issue, whether all of Otago or part. And definitely from the rural side where the challenges we've seen coming at us. A large unitary authority with the rural, and I'm taking Central Otago is predominantly a rural environment, and you take Waitaki is a rural environment. So if we did have a real reshape, as long as the representation of rural have a say, because it's a big driving force. Central Otago was founded on the gold and the wool and the fruit and all those things, and you know we're bickering about ports and all that stuff. So I think we've got to make sure we as council take a really good look at it. I would hate to think we get broken up. But in the last amalgamation, there was talk of Cromwell going to Queenstown, Dunedin want to take the Miniato. So those chats have been had before. Wasn't that long ago that the discussions were had, and people are still pretty passionate about them now on. But what I will say is in this process of not knowing a lot, I think Tame has done an exceptional job representing the people of Central Otago and this table at the level you're at, because when you signed up to be mayor and came along and became a councillor, there's no way that the workload was ever going to be the one it is now. So I think our ratepayers, our Central Otago, are incredibly lucky to have you as our mayor at this time. It's going to be a pretty rocky road, and we can weather the storm back in our constituents and form our opinion. And some of us have been around long enough that it doesn't bite on you every night when you wake up. But you know, we'll make the right decisions as long as we've hey.
Still does.
But you know, we're lucky we've got the right council thinking broad enough, and we're definitely lucky to be led like where we are. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that's, you know, we're all hearing it at an individual level, but we're going through a collective process now where we're going out to our communities to hear the response. And that's what I want to hear. I want to hear what people think and how they feel. But the last thing I would like to see us as we are unique, and we need to hold on to that. I mean, we've just heard from our tourism people and things like that about, and that's the thing which is selling this place is our world of difference. We get swallowed up, we'll disappear, and we'll get ripped off. Stuff will be stolen from us.
Tracy. So I guess Martin has just exhibited very clearly how a lot of people in our community are going to feel. There's a lot of emotion around this. There's a can't even kick him. I'm just. But the reality is there is a lot of feeling, and what I would really love to see, because I agree with all the comments, but I'd really love to see people have a think about forward thinking, where the opportunities lie, and try and, yes, the feelings form part of it, but there's got to be we've got to think carefully, strategically. How does this look? Not just because this isn't just necessarily about us, it's about our kids, our grandchildren, and all of that. And how do we want that to look going forward? I see it. Yes, it's a departure from what we've done for some time. I actually see it as a bit of an opportunity. And I really hope that people don't just come in with we don't want to go with such and such because they've done this or they're not doing this. I think you need to really think about how Central Otago can be bolstered and taken higher with some strategic thinking.
How good some of the other councils be that some of their staff, their leadership, their elected members are in the team.
Oh, it's suggesting we get cloned.
Yeah, quite better.
That's probably one of the things that I'll note for all those dozens of people that are watching online. We spoke about our long-term plan this morning and our plan for the next 10 years. There were a whole heap of things that we pushed out to beyond year 3 because we know this is coming, but there is actually currently no legal ability for us to say we're going to stop this work and wait and see what happens with the Head Start pathway. We must comply with the current legislation. We have asked for the Department of Internal Affairs to give a bit of a steer on what it means planning for 10 years if you're at the same time planning to not exist in 10 years for the likes of regional councils. And also what that means for our audit program, which as Rita pointed out is going to cost us somewhere in the region of $300,000 for the next 12 months. So.
And what this proposed change does not address the fundamental flaw in the whole system of funding local government. And it's been ignored at every level Problem is the current land tax, i.e. rates, does not achieve financial security local government needs to progress for the best interests of their residents. And that's that simple, and it's being ignored from Wellington, and it's our obligation to keep reminding them. And I'd like to extend an invitation to our two members of parliament so they can actually hear from us, because I think they're in land at present with some of the proposals I see being mooted in the local media, which seems to be patting themselves very nicely on the back. They're doing a wonderful job, and here's the answer to the valleys. Rubbish.
There are some real changes when you look around at who does local government the best around the world, and it is predominantly Scandinavian countries and also Singapore, and it's because they get money from
central
government that then pays for them to deliver services locally that their communities want, and that's we've been stretching our rates thinner and thinner and thinner over the last couple of decades to achieve our communities' aspirations without any support from central government in that space.
Thriving, growing, buzzing, vibrant community. It's
There's one word for engaged.
Engaged, passionate.
Our community is engaged.
Has anybody else got any other thoughts?
I'd just like to endorse what Curtis said actually about, ring fencing debt from other areas, if you like. I think that's very important. And I also think that this is possibly going to lead to the sort of resurgence of the community boards, so they might actually be called something different, for local representation, because I think that's very important. So,
And we have obviously ring fence debt from other councils for the Three Waters entity, so it is possible. It's not always the easiest thing to do, but
Some people need a bigger fence than us.
and there's also one of the things that local government. One of the things that local government New Zealand is doing at the moment is seeking a whole heap of legal advice for councils so that we're not all having to go out and get our own legal advice from the same lawyers. So that'll be generated and then shared amongst all councils. LGNZ have also been running a series of Zoom workshops on things like understanding what a unitary council is and does, understanding regional council functions, all of that sort of thing. So I do encourage you to participate in those. Again, there are some recommendations on page 280.
For the recommendations, there was some legal advice about today that just confirms what Madam Mayor said, that essentially, even though this Head Start pathway proposed that we need to comply with all the requirements under the Local Government Act around things like consultation, etc. So the fact that the Otago region is going out and doing some early engagement is really, really good. So Madam Mayor will share those as appropriate.
And I'd just highlight for people watching is this early consultation is not leading to us making a decision in any particular direction. It's just informing us to build a view as to whether or not we want to enter the Head Start process, which then wouldn't be applicable until the legislation was enacted in 2027, even if we were
This whole process is just really following the blueprint from Three Waters, as I see it. And we were told back then that as long as someone on this council has their feet under that table, it will have some say in how it's done. I think that was BS back then, and I think this is BS now. That's why I'll be voting against one and going for option 2.
So and you've just clarified it though, the conversations aren't Head Start, they're conversations, yeah.
It'll come back to this table as to whether we want to join the Head Start process and for what purpose and on what basis.
Given timeframes, depending how the mayoral conversations go, it may well need that we call a special meeting for that. It may not fit into our regular cycle, but we'll see how that goes.
Based on that, and you've kind of half-pie led me into you talk about mayoral conversations. While I'm following on from Stu's comment, we're lucky that we know that you will take what you hear from the community and what you hear from us to that next level. What about other mayors? are they going to do, I mean, you can't talk for them, but is that going to be a risk for anything as we head down that track? That there's going to be blow up in the background because the other mayors have not been able to with their people.
It's always a risk. And we can only control what happens at this table.
Is the longest serving mayor in Otago at the moment.
Yes.
For us, it has up very quickly.
And some have even got chief executives. Remember, we just run the whole colour.
It has been suggested by someone outside of this district.
And therefore, why aren't we being strong on that front? Make a proposal to.
We are central, we are central.
To join Central Otago.
It's not a game of risk.
Feels like it some days.
It's a game of the future.
Right, recognising that we might split the